Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to be here in the first episode of our podcast that is part of our new collaboration with Practicing Law Institute. In case you missed our recent mini episode, the show is now rebranded in a shorter, catchier title, AI in the Future of Law. It was formerly 2030 Vision, AI in the Future of Law. Everything is pretty much still the same. It's still Bridget and me. It's still every other week, and it's still focused on how AI is transforming the legal profession. We have a few small changes, like a new look and feel, some new artwork, and some new branding supported by the Practicing Law Institute and the American Arbitration Association. We're also really excited that we're expanding our conversation formats, even though Bridget and I could riff on AI all day, every day, and frequently do. We'd love to bring some new expertise and perspective so that we can learn more and help everybody else learn more. So, we'll be bringing in some interviews with leaders in AI, legal education, and practice, and get a sense of what's actually happening out there. How are lawyers using this technology, and how is the technology advancing? So, we would encourage you to follow the show. If you like the show, subscribe to it, leave a review. It helps the algorithms pick it up and share it with other people and share it with people and legal professionals that you know that you think would find it valuable. We'd love to spread the word and get more people talking about AI and learning with us. Hi, Bridget. It's great to see you.
Hi, Jen. Great to see you too. One more thing on our new format. If you have anything you want to hear us talk about, or ideas, or questions, please let us know. We like to hear from you.
Yeah, we are very high touch podcast hosts and we take requests. So you can email us or reach out to us on LinkedIn and we will create an episode that responds to topics that interest you. And just so that you know, if you're a new listener or if you've listened for a while, we generally break our show into three main segments. We start with an AI aha, something that Bridget and I have been using AI for since our last conversation that we find particularly interesting. Then we do our best to try to connect the dots with what's happening in the broader tech landscape for lawyers and legal professionals who might be too busy to focus on those things so that we can all keep pace together in our What Just Happened segment. And then finally, we have a main topic where we try to focus on something happening in the legal industry related to AI. So we'll start today with our AI ahas, and I'll turn to Bridget to share what she's been using AI for in her life.
As you know, I always have a hard time picking what to talk about. But I decided to talk about something I've just been playing with on my own. My team will be able to do a much better job of this. But after our last episode, when we were talking about how ChatGPT was all grown up and scoring A pluses on law school exams. And you and I were puzzling about what that would mean for legal education and assessment. How do you, what's a better way to really communicate legal knowledge, and what do law students need to know? And I I I started thinking about our own. We do a lot of training at the AAA. We train people who want to become arbitrators. We're now actually moving also into some advocacy training. And our training is pretty hands-on. It reminds me a lot more of the clinical work that I did in law schools, which I do think is a pretty important part of legal education. Um, but it seemed to me that we also now have all of these new tools at our disposal, and we could probably use them in ways that would really enhance that education. So I just started working with the initial course. I took it myself recently. I took the arbitration fundamentals course just because I don't really have a lot of time to do arbitrations right now, but I wanted to know what the course content was. And started playing with building a custom GPT for one of the modules that's covered in that course. The course is a live course with a basically a hypothetical case that the learners follow from beginning to end, and stop and start in different modules and work in teams. And the custom GPT build has been really enlightening and exciting, because, as you know, I start with my one idea and it suggests like four other ideas for different directions I could take it in and different tools I could add to the experience to enhance it. And because I'm just playing with it to see what's possible, again, my team will do a lot better job of this than I can. It's been just a blast. I've been created some personas, and they're giving me, the learner, a new arbitrator, some challenges, and it's been really a lot of fun. So I don't know what will come of it exactly, but I'm excited about what we could build in terms of our education products at the AAA.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Um, so my AI aha is not really that interesting, I guess, but we talk a lot about emerging capabilities, and if lawyers are listening and they're not familiar with that concept, it's the idea that AI develops the ability to do things that are emergent capabilities, new things that it's able to do that it couldn't do before. And I think it's part of the challenge of working with lawyers is they get stuck on this idea that it can only do this set of things when it's constantly developing new capabilities. And I'm working on a project, a research project, and I was using ChatGPT's deep research function, which you prompted. It reminds me of working with students, which I used to do a lot. And you prompt it and you ask it to do a research report, and then it follows up with a few questions, and then it goes off and it scours the internet and delivers to you a really nice research report with all of these citations. But before, I'm pretty sure that when I used to click on the citations, it would take me to the website. But now when I click on the citation, the citations are now inline in the research report, which they might have always been, I'm not sure. But when I click on it now, it actually pulls down on the website and highlights where it found the information, which is amazing to me because before I was like clicking on the URL to see if it was hallucinating and having to do a lot more fact checking. And now the fact checking is a lot faster. So um, it's it's a weird technology as we always talk about, and, but it's great when you find these new things that it can do that make things even faster. So that was my aha this week.
I don't think I've noticed that yet. It must be in the last week or so. Maybe I haven't done a deep research report in the last week or so. That's amazing. That's the kind of thing that, yeah, you can lose a lot of time on having to like scour a big website to confirm something. That's really, really exciting. Yeah.
Well, it's also sort of like and I was thinking about it, it's you start thinking about what are the new jobs that are gonna be created and what are the new tasks people are gonna do, and for a while, I thought, well, fact checking is gonna be the next thing that people will move to. And maybe that's still true, but a week ago, I thought fact checking was something different than it's already become, which is like now it's a lot faster. You don't necessarily have to go in and look through the entire article. It's gonna show you where it is, and then that's
Yeah.
faster. I don't know. So that was my aha this week.
That's very cool.
So let's move into our what just happened segment. These are always my favorite because I get the sense, and maybe you get the sense when you talk to lawyer and judge and legal audiences that people who are working just don't have the time to focus on what's happening in the broader tech landscape, which is where a lot of the really interesting stuff is happening. And it might not be that obvious yet in legal how things are unfolding so quickly. So what are we going to focus on this week, Bridget, in our What Just Happened segment?
Yeah, we always have a hard time deciding what makes the cut for this segment because a lot always has happened in 2 weeks, trust us. And I don't know about you, but I use a lot of cheat sheets for figuring that out, but like listening to other podcasts who do some of the aggregating and then, spotting the most important trends. But I think you and I both independently listened to a fairly long interview that Ethan Mollick, who we've talked about before in the podcast, who's on the faculty at the Wharton School and is a really thoughtful thought leader in AI and AI in education, AI in training. And even though he's not a lawyer or in the legal field at all, we find, or you and I have found, I think that his work is useful in thinking about the ways in which the legal profession might move forward with this technology. So he gave this interview. The interviewer was Joel Hellermark, who I guess is the Sana CEO and founder. Clearly, I didn't know Joel myself before listening to this interview, but he's clearly quite knowledgeable about AI and has been building with AI for some time. And it was a wide ranging interview, and we could we could talk about the interview for the whole podcast. But what I think you and I both focused on independently, and which is why it made the cut for us today, is Ethan's discussion of apprenticeship based professions, and law is clearly one of those. For many generations now, the primary way people were trained as lawyers was they worked on many matters as young associates for partners and got maybe some feedback. Maybe it was positive feedback, maybe it was negative feedback, and hopefully after some many hundreds or thousands of hours of that kind of doing things over and over again, they kind of magically, this is how Ethan put it, magically became, senior lawyers with knowledge and, able to be strategic partners to their clients. And that's just the way it's always worked. And law is not the only profession. It sounds like that's true in a lot of finance as well, and a lot of consulting. And so it's a similar apprenticeship model. Maybe banking was another area where he called it out. You work 150 hours a week just because we've always done it that way, and eventually all of that work through trial and error makes you a banker, and that's the way it's always worked. And as Ethan put it in this one sentence that stopped me in my tracks, he said that the apprenticeship model broke this summer. It's broken. It doesn't work anymore. And I think that's exactly right. That's what this technology has done, because it's already useful for juniors in any profession, but it's also useful for um, senior level lawyers or bankers or consultants, or uh, what do you call somebody who's senior in finance? A financier? I don't know. I'm making it up now. I recommend this interview with Ethan to anybody who's in a profession where this is the way we've trained people for any amount of time, which turns out to be a lot of knowledge work. Because I couldn't agree with him more. And he's just one of the most thoughtful people on the ways we have to kind of start over about what it means to train people in a profession and how important it is to really put thought into what that looks like. And you and I've talked before about what part of that is the responsibility of law schools and what part of that is the responsibility of practicing, lawyers in law firms or other legal organizations. And I hope they can all get on the same page about thinking about what that looks like. Ethan said, one area where we have figured this out is sports, and anybody who has like raised high school athletes, like my kids were swimmers, knows how true that is. Like I used to think these formulas were insane for my high school swimmers would have such a specific schedule of like the things that the coach would have them swim every morning and every afternoon leading up to the biggest meet, the state meet, right? If they qualified for the state meet. And then the taper was also, it was almost scientific, the taper. She knew exactly like how much to let up, day by day by day leading into the state finals. And sure enough, in the state final, they would like swim their faces off in some with like some, time that was I would have thought was impossible. And it was basically science. Like she wasn't like, just follow me, just swim how I swim. Like that wasn't what she did. It was really like like a specific training program. And I think the other I mean, he didn't say this, but for me, I mean, I also raised kids who had to learn how to play stringed instruments. And music is similar, right? I mean, I know there are some people who are really naturally musical. My niece is one of those. She can like teach herself how to play instruments, but most my kids weren't. And they literally had to just like practice over and over and over again, like scales and where exactly that note is on your strings and how to make it sound. And so we do this in other areas. I know it sounds a little boring to do whatever the lawyer thing is of practicing your scales maybe, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Anyway, there's lots of other really interesting things about this interview. You probably have some that I haven't mentioned, but that was the one that really made my brain, start moving. It's why I started building my custom GPT for training arbitrators.
It's funny you say that because as you're talking, I wanna jump in to create some sort of custom GPT for law firm associate training because what you're describing with your kids, like, the piece that Ethan's talking about that we experienced as junior lawyers, if you were in a law firm, comparing it to your kids and music, like, what you got was practice. You did get practice at doing all of these tasks over and over and over again, right? Like, you did legal research memos, you drafted complaints. It was boring, and you only got to do, like, these minute pieces, and frequently, if you were, like, a third-year associate, it was hard to see what the point of it was because you didn't have somebody unless you had a great mentor explain to you, like, this is how it fits into what we're actually trying to do for a client. It just felt like you're running on a hamster wheel and your point was just to generate hours, which it is. But you did have the practice, but what you didn't have was the intentionality of the coaching, and there wasn't really value placed on the coaching beyond, like, we don't want the associates to leave, we'd like them to stay to keep generating revenue, and the science piece of it, which, like, you're saying and it was just funny when you were saying, "Just follow me and swim how I swim." I'm just picturing, like, a bunch of people in suits and briefcases swimming to court or something. But I would love to see if you created a custom GPT and you said, like, "Help me figure out what the science is of learning how to develop as a lawyer and what it would look like to actually coach and create reinforcement learning," like, for lack of a better term, along the way and combine that with practice in a way that would actually produce a lawyer. Our friend Jay will always say, what do law firms actually make? And her answer always is law firms make lawyers. But they do that through this process that's rooted in apprenticeship, which if Ethan's right and that broke, we need a new approach that incorporates coaching and science and the practice. Um, so I don't know. Thank you for comparing that with swimming and music because now I wanna go play and have our next aha be about what ChatGPT told me about that. But the other problem with the apprenticeship models, I don't know how it works in high finance or, consulting work, but in law, the problem is the economics because the reason that we had an apprenticeship model is because it's underwritten by corporate clients who had to put up with training junior level associates.
Yeah, they were paying for those hours, so it made economic sense. I mean, and this might be why, you and I have had many conversations with law firms, but also with in-house legal teams. And I hear in-house legal teams putting together pretty creative training processes on like long-standing matters. And it makes sense because they're, as you always say, a cost center, not a revenue center, right? It makes sense that they can spend the time building um, you know, custom GPTs around a training set for the new lawyers that are cycling onto a matter. Um, Financially, it makes sense. But I think there are some lawyers that are thinking about this, and this will be another area where it'll be fun. Our new format because we'll probably get to talk to a somebody or more than one person who's thinking about what this could look like. Because I think it should feel exciting. It should feel exciting. We can start from scratch.
Yeah, that would be great to have a guest on thinking about, how to develop some new ways to coach and train and infuse science into associate development. And we don't have time to dig into it, but maybe in a future episode. The other part of the interview that I thought was really interesting was how Ethan was talking about in his classes at Wharton, how he's always been sort of AI forward and had AI in the classroom. But that once they moved from 3.5 to 4.0 and the AI was as smart as his students were, that he basically like had to completely reimagine what happens inside of a classroom. And I just find that totally fascinating. I don't know about you.
I thought it was fascinating and also inspiring. It wasn't like, "Oh, and so then and then I banned it." It was, he was like, "Nope, we just had to like rethink what teaching means for me in this." So instead, he builds it in as a teammate and as a mentor and as uh, someone who challenges the students in their work. And it basically he just figures out a better way to incorporate it like as the technology changes. So it's pretty exciting. I mean, maybe there's some of that going on somewhere, and we can again find some guests. He said so many things that have like reverberated in my head since I listened to it. But another one he said, which I know is obviously true, but I hadn't really thought about it before. We often talk about the jagged frontier, which is a term that we steal from Ethan of the technology. And what he means by that is you don't really know what it can do and what it can't do until you try and see if it can do it or if it can. And there'll be things that surprises you that it can do, and other things that it can't that also surprises you. And so it's got this kind of jagged edge of capabilities. And he said, but humans also have that. Humans have jagged edges of capabilities, which is so true. Like, we think we all, like, come to a new task in the same way, and we don't. I mean, I have things that I think I'm excellent at and things that I'm not good at all, and they're different from, the person sitting in the office next to me or sitting in class next to me. And, so it's yet another way that the technology feels a lot more human than not, right? When you think about it.
Yeah, and the other thing that I took from it too, listening to his class, like he talked about how he teaches entrepreneurship at Wharton. So he talked about how they used to spend a whole semester, and by the end of the semester, the students had to come up with a PowerPoint deck, a pitch deck, and like a business plan. And now, like by the end of the second week, they have to come up with an MVP for a product because now they're able to prototype, and like you don't really need to create a business plan on your own. But when I was listening to that, what I was thinking was, and we've talked about this even today, like I have so many friends that are very skeptical and like averse to using AI at all. And I hear these stories like it's like this split screen, and it's okay, you can opt out if you want to and have whatever ethical, moral objections you want to the technology. But just know that there are people who are racing ahead to figure out how to use it in a million different ways. And so in some ways, you're either just shooting yourself in the foot and not taking advantage of it and figuring out how you can do what you want to do better, or not taking active part in shaping it and handing over the control of the future of how it's shaped to people that you don't know or don't trust.
Yeah.
Not that like Ethan's students aren't trustworthy, but I mean like the big tech companies or the people
Oh, right.
shaping
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
technology itself.
Yeah, no, that was also fascinating. He said they can, like, within one class, they can have an MVP and then, create, a bunch of, users, like, AI users to test it and try and break it and give it feedback. And it's really apparently changed that kind of teaching. So I think it probably could change a lot of teaching in legal too. We just have to figure it out. Yeah. But I don't know, there's some news. We can move to our main topic for today, and that's, I think, the main topic, is about the partnership announced last week between Harvey, which we've talked about before and probably is the best well-known legal AI platform. And I think it's in many global law firms at this point, and Lexis. And why don't you give us a an overview of what this, partnership means and why we thought it was main topic worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Harvey is an AI native company. So it was born of this era since ChatGPT emerged. And one of the things that makes it distinctive as compared to some of the incumbent companies is that it's built by lawyers for lawyers to use, which is one of the things that, by accounts of people who've enjoyed using it, is what makes it so popular among some lawyers who've tested it. And in the last maybe 6 weeks or so, Harvey's announced 2 significant partnerships that, we both thought were noteworthy because they solve for a couple of problems that we saw with AI breaking through to create some of the unlocks that we think are possible in legal. So the first is a strategic partnership, with the legal information giant LexisNexis, and the other is a tech partnership with document management system provider iManage. And iManage is what many law firms and corporate legal departments use as their document management system. So it has the capability to store and organize all of the firm and corporate legal departments' documents for decades now. So, the interesting part about these alliances is that it really positions Harvey to take its AI capabilities that it's been developing and marry those with high quality legal content, which has been what's kind of been stymieing the ability to adopt these technologies in legal, and the ability potentially to integrate it into services directly that lawyers are using every day as part of their workflows. So we thought that this was really interesting because it really has the potential to create this breakthrough innovation in legal. I thought it was interesting in particular because lawyers are understandably concerned about trust and reliability and the security of their data and the protection of client data, of attorney work products, of all of the things lawyers are concerned about. And the iManage partnership in particular seems to bake in the ability to ensure that all of the data is already protected and compliant with all of the client protocols. And then on the Lexis side, which appears to be more of a strategic partnership and less of like just an API connection point than the iManage partnership, as I understand it, really allows it to connect to all that public information, the legal information lawyers use to do all the work that they do. So I just, as soon as I saw it, thought it was really interesting. I know it created a lot of buzz in the legal industry, but curious what you thought about it, Bridget.
Yeah, and then maybe you said this, but just to make it like really clear, and I had to ask ChatGPT a bunch of questions to try and understand how the integration works. So Harvey is built on OpenAI's platforms. And OpenAI is a significant investor in Harvey and has been since Harvey launched, which was very early days in ChatGPT's when ChatGPT was like a toddler or maybe like in second grade or something. It was like when ChatGPT was a little guy, little girl. Um, and so already Harvey had, had the ability to do pretty significant legal work using the deep research functions that OpenAI has. And then, because it's AI native, it's and trained by lawyers. I think the founder is a lawyer and a big law partner and a Google engineer that they trained it specifically for legal workflows. So, legal memos, the kinds of like motions and writing that lawyers do. That's the kind of extra training. So it's not just a throw your question into deep research, which, as we know, does pretty well. Look at all of the tests that are showing that. This is taking that up a notch already. So I think it was already getting a lot of substantive legal use in the by the lawyers in law firms who were using it. And like I said, I think it's in many law firms. But the the LexisNexis piece feels like it like ties a bow on that in the, because there's always the one y- deep research might do like a pretty amazing job. It hallucinates a whole lot less. We now know it shows you citations. You can actually check them better. We now know from you. But with LexisNexis integrated into that research and writing workflow, it 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 kind of closes the gap between, that what did I have to then go double check in another window, in another platform to make sure the citations are all correct before I can send it to my senior partner or file it with a court or file it with an arbitrator. So that's pretty interesting because LexisNexis has the Shepherd products, so that Shepherd products can do that citation work now, all within one platform. So the combination of Harvey and iManage, and now LexisNexis and Harvey itself being built on OpenAI's products does feel like a bit of a big deal in legal. I mean, I assume that the law firms that were already Harvey users and also LexisNexis users are feeling really good about the bet they made. At a time when nobody knew what bet to make, right? Because it does feel optimized for next gen legal practice, whatever that looks like. At least as far as I can tell. And just again asking ChatGPT about the ways in which it all integrates for the user. I wonder if it expands beyond law firms. Like, I don't know enough about Harvey's, like, pricing or, the sort of its whether there's gonna be pricing for legal services organizations or who could really use that kind of, you know, wonderful interface, right, between, their internal documents, their legal research needs and the amazing capabilities of OpenAI's products, built through Harvey's interface for lawyers by lawyers. So I don't know enough about that. I don't know if you've heard anything about that. I'm not aware of any legal services organizations that are using Harvey. I hope there's eventually some kind of public interest like tier for so that everybody has access to it.
Yeah, I haven't. It's a really interesting question because I don't know how many public interest organizations use like document management systems like iManage versus something like Azure, and something maybe even simpler that they're able to connect with or how that works. But it does seem like, especially if you're a legal services organization that primarily practices in a single jurisdiction, that maybe there would be some sort of tier where you could get a subscription where you're just getting Lexis's content in Pennsylvania or Michigan because you don't need the whole library. Or, even like a consumer tier, offering or something that entrepreneurs could build on in your own jurisdiction. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a consumer tier would be amazing. I don't. I'm sure they're trying to do one thing well, and they've obviously been doing it pretty well. So maybe that they'll leave that for the next business. Um, but it would be exciting if they did it. I don't know if you saw this, but in Harvey's last funding round, which I think was just February of this year, Lexis's parent company, which is Relex, I think it's RELX, it was an investor in Harvey in February. So that probably was a smart move, and probably gave them a bit of an edge in forming this, partnership, whatever it is exactly.
I will say I've seen some conversation back and forth on social media among small law firms that they can't even get in touch with Harvey to get subscriptions. So, like, Harvey is purely focused on big law, to your other question about legal services organizations. So, there's been some conversation about whether there's, like, a coming split between the haves and the have-nots when I think you and I both share this hope that this era could be like a chance to democratize legal services, whether it could actually exacerbate it if it only stays in big law.
Yeah, there's so many important use cases for, like not only legal services organizations and consumers, but courts. I'm always thinking like, gosh, imagine if courts that had to make, quick decisions, often with imperfect information about really important issues that affect families, for example. Imagine if they had this kind of powerful tool at their disposal to do a first cut or do a review of, what a difference it might make in the service they could provide the public. So I'm still kind of hoping for those solutions, which is where I feel like we'll see the real abundance is, I guess, is what we say now. I don't know. That's where I would like to see, lots of opportunity, opportunity for public servants who are really trying to do their best to like serve people who usually aren't showing up at court because everything's going great, and be able to really take that service up a notch. That would be exciting. So these kinds of partnerships, though, make me optimistic about our reluctant profession to like think about doing things differently and think about innovation differently, at least differently than ever before in my career.
Yeah, and maybe, not to be too Pollyanna about it because I think that there are real challenges, but we've talked in many contexts about the opportunities for pro bono practices in big law firms. If pro bono practices at some of the top law firms in the world have access to Harvey that now has these unlocks available, I mean, the sky really is the limit. There are no business model implications to being able to do all of these things at scale anymore. And maybe there are opportunities with their partners in the public interest and in government and in courts to start to expand the learning. I mean, I think the story of technology always is costs coming down and hopefully innovation happening, whether it's Harvey or somebody else who replicates Harvey's business model in other places. But that seems like a place to get started at least.
Yeah, I don't even remember the conversation I've had recently, but a number of them where this is my anybody who asks me about creative pro bono ideas, it's this is my creative pro bono idea. Like find a couple of your engineers who are already building with it, and get together with a local clinical professor who's got an idea, or legal services office, or a court that has a big unrepresented docket, and build some solutions and try them out and see what happens. Like, scale your pro bono work. Don't one case at a time at this point, in my view.
Definitely. It's sort of, and I think, again, not to, like, constantly cite Ethan, but others have said this too, that the sort of prevailing mental model for using AI at the beginning was start small and then expand, but it's missing the huge opportunities that AI creates. So, like, now it's sort of take big swings and learn what you can learn and then scale back, and it's starting to feel exciting when you see these fences being taken down between systems. We were talking about the Hard Fork podcast before we started recording, and Casey and Kevin had the mayor of San Francisco on today. And as somebody who used to work in city government, I was really curious because they asked him about AI, and he was saying how they have 58 departments in the city of San Francisco. We have 33 in Philadelphia, and they don't talk to each other. Their data's all siloed, much like every big city. And the opportunity to be able to, like, have easier ways to aggregate it and talk to it and analyze it in ways that can actually, like, help the citizens of your city is really exciting.
Yeah, that was a fascinating part of Ethan's. He was saying, yeah, a lot of businesses have the tendency to start small. Let's do a small pilot, see how it goes, and then we can, scale from there. And he's like, "What? Why? Why have it summarize the document? It's been able to do that for 2 years. Like, just do the thing after the summarization. Don't like." I like the swing for the fences approach. It's not super comfortable for lawyers, but I like hearing him articulate it, I should say.
That's why I love that story that I keep going back to, and I use in every presentation about that firm in Georgia that got the $7.2 million verdict, by using ChatGPT deep research, because it is like you hear lawyers use it in every conversation I'm in. They're like, "Well, I'll take an article and I'll summarize it and send it to one of my partners, and it's great." It's like you're thinking so small, and we're just used to thinking small, and it's scary, but I just think we could do so much better and bigger. And that's why I think we both thought the Harvey story was interesting. I mean, Harvey generates a lot of passion. I think passionate feelings in the legal tech community as well. And I don't know whether you wanted to share some of the sort of exchanging views on it.
I mean, in the legal tech community and just the legal community, right? They're sort of like devotees. I mean, I think Megan Ma at Stanford says that it's totally reshaping how law firms train and develop like junior lawyers. There are now sort of, they call them Harvey associates. Like, they're just that Harvey is like in their workflow, and it's kind of how they work. And then there are, lawyers who have really negative reactions to it. It's never completely clear to me that it's because of dissatisfaction with the platform. And I should be really clear. I've never used Harvey at all. I have no knowledge about it. But yeah, the fact that there is so much emotion about it in the profession, to me, tells me it's probably doing something right. When people are talking about you, like, no matter what their point of view is, it probably means you're breaking through in a way that other uh, legal AI startups have not yet. And there are a number of legal AI startups that are getting tremendous funding and tremendous traction, but none quite like Harvey, right? I think that's fair to say.
Definitely. And I think that's probably a good place to end our conversation. But certainly that won't be the end of the discussion about Harvey and all of the other developments happening in the AI landscape in legal. And we're so excited to be with our new collaborators at Practicing Law Institute, and excited to expand our audience and learn even more as we bring in some new experts in future conversations, and then continue talking to one another about technologies we've never used but have strong opinions about their their potential. Well, as always, it has been such a blast hanging out with you, Bridget.
Yep. Have a good week next week, and I'll see you after that.
Until then, take care, everybody.